On today's show, a new mural goes up in Dallas. Get Luka Doncic some help. But how much help does he have? What did Mark Cuban say about this? We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
That's right. And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to comment anything below. Let me know. Does Luka have help? I couldn't think of a question for this one. What did you think about the Luka mural? The Luka needs help mural. We'll show it to you. I couldn't think of a question.
Does Luka have help?
Oh, I bailed. I bailed so hard on that one. Joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com, the traveling teen, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Don't clip that one and send it to other hosts of like what to do as you start the show.
One of the funny things about this job is that this podcast, I'm telling other people how to do this podcast that we're doing right now. Like that's my full-time job is to do that. So when I screw up, it's like I had two hosts text me over the weekend that they listened to one of my solo shows, and I was like, oh my God, did I forget to do a tease before my break one?
Yeah, some random host of like some random college, Locked On something colleges.
No, it was NBA host. But.
Yeah, so I'm still traveling, still up in Kentucky. Shout out to my setup here in a living room with a Christmas tree behind me.
When do you take the tree down? When we already took ours down.
Listen, it is because we took our Christmas trip back home, and my mom left the tree and everything up for my kids.
Respect.
And,
yeah, we did that last year.
I know it's a lot of fun. You covered a couple games over the weekend. Portland.
Accusatory. I didn't make them lose.
You are the reason they lost. Shout out to those games.
Oh my gosh.
Those were a lot of fun.
They happened. One of them was better than the other, and one of them didn't have Luka. I'll let you decide which one was which. It was actually the opposite of what you think. But yeah, today on the show, a new mural.
Hey, what about them boys though? What about them boys?
We're recording during the fourth quarter, but it's 31-6. So unless something crazy happens with Tom Brady, go Cowboys.
Tom's done. Talking about a washed king.
Oof.
He's washed.
All right, today we're going to get into, does Luka Doncic have help? New mural goes up in Dallas. Mark Cuban responds to it. It's become a talking point. It's been a talking point that Luka needs help, right? I mean, we've even shared it on this podcast, and to a certain degree, yes, of course he does. And then we'll get into that and talk about that. But let's start with it right now. This is the mural that went up. I'll show it to you guys on YouTube if you're watching right now. It's the House of Panic is the guy who put it up, and it's he's done some other murals around Dallas. And it's Luka Doncic holding up like a blue little banner that says, please send help. And it's got a couple of his stat lines around it. What was your reaction when you first saw this mural put up?
I just started laughing. It was good artwork. Shout out. I think he's done some other murals in DFW, if I'm not mistaken. But I laughed even harder when when Mark responded to it. And I laughed about it. I mean, I don't know. It brought up different. One, does Luka need a second star? Yes. Other reaction to it though is like, I don't know if it's. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
Mark Cuban,
I would never put up something like that. But oh well, sure.
It says a lot of things, right? And this guy, this guy that put it up, he talked to our friend Doyle at the Observer. Or Danny Gallagher first, and then Doyle did a story on him too. But he talked to these guys and said, I'm a Mavs fan, and I want Luka to get help, and I want him to be able to have a good career, and Mavericks not to waste his career, basically. So Mark Cuban responds to it and says, in an email to the Observer, which Mark Cuban responds to a lot of emails, he said, "It is disrespectful, but it's your choice to do what you want. If that's the way you want to be a fan, go for it." Cuban said, "I appreciate the murals that you've done. You truly have artistic talent. I appreciate you being a Mavs fan." What did you think about Mark Cuban's reaction to the mural?
Well, I mean, one, you get a response from an owner, right? I mean, I think if you're the artist, then it's cool that Mark is acknowledging your work and how talented, because I mean, he is really talented. I think the mural is great. You know, I think I do agree. Well, shocker here. Everybody's gonna be, oh, company man. I do agree with Mark that it's disrespectful to the other players on the team. I'll just say that. I think that's the rest of the sentence that I would add. I don't know what he might mean disrespectful to, you know, any other thing. I don't know, but I think it's only disrespectful like to the team of, you know, if Spencer, Christian Wood, whoever it is driving through Deep Ellum, like, oh dang, guess we don't mean anything, you know, to Mavs fans. I mean, I think that's the only
and that's the line that he has to ride as the owner, right? Like, and part of the line that, like, you know, people like you and me, and even definitely people that are higher than us in media have to ride the line of, we can't just be going over and over again, Luka has no help, there's no one there, and then go talk to these players and go see these players. Mark Cuban spends, you know, like, a lot of time with these players and goes to every game. And if he's like, you know, Luka just doesn't have any help around him, like, just nobody's good around Luka, you know, we can't be winning, like, we can't be expecting to win these games if Luka doesn't have any help. And then be like, hey, Spencer Dinwiddie, let's talk. And I think there's,
or hey, let's max out Christian Wood, but then turn around and be like, well, Luka doesn't have any help right now. You know, it's like, well, hold on, we want to max out the help,
and that's the actual big, like, problem with a lot of this is, okay, what the actual narrative itself that the mural is based on. Send Luka, like, please send help is what Luka is saying in the in the banner, right? Of course.
Great tattoo work on his arm, by the way.
Of course. We've been talking for years about how Luka needs a second star to get to the level they want.
I don't disagree. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't disagree with the mural.
No, of course not.
Like, he needs a second star. He does need more help than what he has now.
But it just says send help, not more help. And so the idea that, okay, Luka needs more help, yes, to get to a certain level in his career. But there are players around him that are doing some things right now. And so for Mark Cuban to respond to that, of course he's going to respond this way. He's not going to, like, echo every single thing that the fan base says. And that's why Mark Cuban called it disrespectful. So I agree with him on that point. We also still agree that he does need help. Like, Luka does still need help. And if that's what you want and that's what you're asking for, I don't think this is going to change anything. Another thing that I don't understand.
I don't know. Mark could be driving through Deep Ellum. He sees the mural and is like, you know what? I think I'm going to pull the trigger on a trade right now.
The thing that I don't understand is this idea from fans that, oh, the Mavericks are just ruining Luka's career, and they just, you know, they can't get him any help, and they're not trying. They're not going out there and trying to do, like, that part. Do they not see that he needs help? Of course they do, right? The whole reason they didn't sign Jalen Brunson to the biggest deals because they wanted to get him more help and knew that they were going to be locked into a team, or they thought they were going to be locked into a team if they signed Brunson to this long deal or in this, you know, big money deal, and not be able to.
That was a mistake.
For sure. But their mentality behind the move was, if we sign him to this like $30+ million deal each year, then, and we just got stomped by the Warriors, like, we need to get to another level. So to get to that other level, we're going to try something different. And Jalen Brunson didn't want to get traded. He was going to get traded if he signed it anyway. And so he's like, oh, I'm going to go to the Knicks. So part of it's a mistake on the Mavericks. Part of it is Jalen Brunson didn't want to get traded. He was going to get traded, right? Like, the Mavericks, to get to that level they wanted to get to, they're probably going to trade him, even if they signed him to that big money deal. So Brunson decided not to sign it, and he decides to go to the Knicks. But the reason the Mavericks did that is because they're like, he needs more help, and we need to make that other big move. And then part of it is patience now, to wait till they can make that move.
Yeah, I think we'll talk more about it here coming up in a second. But, you know, it's just, it all comes out of passion, right? Like what the artist said. He's like, man, I just love the Mavs so much. Like, all of it's coming out of passion, diehard fandom, that you want to see your best player succeed. You want to see your best player stay in the city and play for the team that you cheer for. So you get so passionate about it. And especially, we've talked about this a million times, when the expectations go up, then the whole temperature of the fan base goes up too. And then, you know, and the organization too. It's like, all right, now the expectations are here. So now everybody is going to be up here when it comes to discourse and arguments and debates and podcasts and all of that, and Twitter and all of that. But let's talk about it more kind of next, because I do want to talk about how the Mavs have tried to get him help.
Twitter isn't the coach or the player.
Talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Rocket Money. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, we've talked about this a lot. It's a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills. Man, I'm gonna say something right here. I went through, and there was a certain thing that we started counting up how much me and my wife were spending on this certain thing, and it ended up being like $500 in a given month, and we were like, what? We need
Avatar merch.
We need a Rocket Money. Yeah, in the comment section, what did I spend $500
Disney tickets.
One ticket. That'll get you one ticket into the park. And we need Rocket Money to be able to manage our finances, to be able to cancel some of our subscriptions. Still had a Paramount Plus subscription. I'm like, I don't know what is even on Paramount Plus. You can get that easily and identify it with Rocket Money to help you decide, all right, what things am I spending too much money on? You can help cancel your unwanted subscriptions and stop throwing your money away. Manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Isaac Harris. Let's talk about this narrative. A mural goes up in Dallas over the last week. Luka Doncic holding up a sign that says, "Please send help." What responsibility do the Mavericks have in this, that to get Luka help, and that this has become such a narrative that Luka doesn't have help?
You know, we were texting before the pod, and then we were talking before we hit record, and we're like, all right, and I'm like, do we really want to like talk about it? It's like, well, I think the mural is a doorway, is a door to. Sorry, I should use my cough button. Is a door to this conversation of, does Luka have help? Have they tried to get him help? Because I think there's one thing to say, hey, Luka needs more help. Luka needs the second star for them to take that next step. I think it's another thing to say, this front office, this franchise is the worst ever. They haven't even tried to get him help. This is, year 5, and Luka's on the floor with him right now. It's like, those are my favorite things right now. It's like, one, all right, we do have like 3 or 4 injuries right now, so it does kind of make sense for the end of bench guys to be in the game. But, that's another thing. So then it goes back to the question, how much do you blame the organization? Because I think there are a few things. Now, obviously, everybody listening to this, you can disagree. This is just how I feel, how Nick feels. There's things that I blame. I'm saying, like, whenever you chime in.
You're about to speak for me?
No. Like, whenever you chime in, like this conversation. There's things that I look at the Mavs and say, hey, you deserve a ton of blame for that. Jalen Brunson leaving was a debacle.
Yeah,
like, you should have extended him. You should have, like, all of that. There's no way Jalen Brunson should have left out that door. There's no way you could do that. I think you could look at like the Josh Green pick. Even though he's playing really well, that was one of your chances to find somebody. Now, he's growing into something. So however you want to say it, I think the KP max extension is something you could look at and be like, should you have handed him just a full max extension, like when he hadn't even played a game coming off the torn ACL and all of that?
When we had like a template of the Embiid contract where you have certain built-in things like, all right, you got to play this amount of games and you got to be able to be this healthy in order for us to have the 4th year or the 5th year like guaranteed. And all, instead, they just gave him the full guaranteed deal when he was not gonna go. Like, he was not gonna leave. He was gonna stay with the Mavericks. He had just been traded over. He was excited to be there.
But you kind of get it in the sense of, hey, you're not going to trade for somebody and then not re-sign them. So you're not going to give up the picks and all of that if you're not fully committed to them in the future. So you like kind of get it, whatever. There are different things I can go through and say, yeah, I disagree with that. I can pick at that. What I can't get on board with is that Dallas hasn't tried, because you drafted generational talent in Luka Doncic, and it was no time that they actually made a swing. Like, most franchises don't make that type of big swing to pair a second star alongside a generational star that early in the career. But they saw how good Luka was and was like, hold up. Like, we're going to be making the play. Like, the only time they haven't made the playoffs was Luka's rookie. Since Luka's been in the league, is his rookie season. Since Luka's been here, they've made the playoffs 3 out of 4 years, about to be, the 4th year of his career. They made it to a conference finals already. So it's like they made the swing for Porzingis early in his career because of how good he was, and they swung for a guy who they got kind of at a bargain, but it's like, this guy was a top, 15 player before his torn ACL, an all-star, the unicorn and all of that. And it's like they swung for it. And it's like, all right, we're going to swing for the second star right now instead of waiting it out and being patient and all of that. Now, they even chased after guys. You know how, like, it is undersold how much they thought Kemba Walker was in the bag. And the
years
years
ago.
Yeah, and when he went to Boston.
Yeah.
And I mean, Boston pulled off a miracle of the Horford trade and Philly and like all this stuff to create the space. And then out of nowhere, they swooped in and got Kemba Walker. Dallas thought they got Kemba Walker. Like, I don't think the Kyle Lowry stuff was as confident. They went for Kyle Lowry. They went for the Danny Green type and all of that. They just didn't get him. So it's like they tried. This is stuff that we know of. And then the biggest thing is they made the gamble on Giannis. And it's like,
sure.
I get it in hindsight right now. It's fun it's the popular thing is like, why did we go for Giannis? He was never leaving Milwaukee. It's easy to say he was never leaving Milwaukee. This was before he won the title. And it's like, you have a generational guy like Luka, and then you have the chance to pair him with Giannis this early in Luka's career. You know, you're looking at it saying, all right, if this works, I mean, we're talking one of, if not the best duos of all time. We're talking multiple titles.
Yep.
And if there's ever a time to take the chance and gamble and take the swing for it, it's early in Luka's career, right? To where if you do miss out on Luka, like, and getting Giannis, then you still have some time to, you know, build around Luka and all of that. So like all of that stuff, I get all of that. And they've tried, like they've legitimately tried to add those guys and chase after those guys. And this is more than like stuff that we don't even know.
There's on the front page of Mavs Reddit right now, there's a spot rack, or however you pronounce the name of that website that tracks like finances and cap sheets and, you know, salary cap and stuff for different leagues. They have one for the NBA, and it's 5-year NBA cash spending. So it's like the amount of money that a team has spent on their player salaries over the last 5 years. The Mavericks are number 30 out of 30 in that over the last 5 years. Now, the first year on that is the year before Luka, the Dennis Smith Jr. year, one of the last years of Dirk. And the Mavericks have, you know, ever since then have paid definitely more than that year, but they're 30th on that list. And I started to look at that, and I started to look through a couple of the comments on it. And I think that tells you the three big mistakes that the Mavericks made in this, you know, this tenure since Luka. With Luka, by the way, they had to trade that they used their 2018 pick and traded the 2019 pick. So that 2019 pick that ended up being Cam Reddish, that was another one of your chances. You had to use that to get Luka. You do it a billion times out of a billion, right? Like you do.
And you had to use the pick, you know, before Luka to take the swing for the second star in Dennis Smith Jr.
Right. And so, yeah. And so you use that. And then, so they didn't have a pick in 2019. Then you don't have a player that could be, you know, going into a second contract right now. That's when you spend more money. That's when you go over the cap and all that. They also, like you said, did the dry powder route, which every Mavs fan cringes. You listening are probably cringing hearing me say just plain powder, dry powder. But they tried that for 2019. And so they cleared the books. They had a bunch of cap space. And
missed out on Terrence Ross.
And they missed out on Giannis. And then there's a lot of people saying, well, they should have just got anybody with that money. Like, maybe, but like Jay Crowder's not changing your life. Danilo Gallinari was a big one that they missed out that the Hawks got, and everyone's like, "Oh no, you missed out on." He's not doing anything now, right? Like, so they missed out
on some other free agents, and then their plan B was DeLon Wright, Seth Curry, and then they brought back Maxey Doran and all of those guys. And it's like, yes, in hindsight,
it failed.
It failed. Yes, I get it, but like, it failed because you were holding out the hope for Giannis, and you tried for that. And I know a lot of people are listening saying you should have never held out for it. And this is where people can just disagree. I think I would have held out for it. I would have taken the chance.
So then there's the dry powder plan. That's the first mistake that, you know, whether you would have gone back and done it. Isaac would have done it again. I don't know if I would have done it again. I think it was a little too early in Luka's tenure to go after a plan like that, to get a free agent like that. It's tough now in the NBA to go get a free agent. Guys have so much agency, and I don't know if the Mavericks were ready to do that. Then the Porzingis trade, right? That was a huge one. You use a bunch of picks. You basically held all of your draft picks hostage for the next 5 years until this upcoming draft. And so that's another mistake that you did. Plus, you add on the bonus of the contract they gave him. And then the third one is not doing the Jalen Brunson extension because they didn't want to have their money tied up so that they could go get somebody else to be better, right? There's those three big mistakes that are the exactly why they were 30th out of 30th in 5-year like cash spending on player salaries over the last 5 years. And they've had very little opportunities to make big moves like that because of how good Luka's been. You have very few opportunities to make big, huge moves when your player is that good, like at the top. That's why, the Warriors couldn't make it. The Warriors made one trade out of the last 10 years or something crazy like that. It was the Russell, Kevin Durant, or it's the Russell Wiggins trade. It was the only trade they've really made over the last couple years here. And so, that's what it comes down to. But coming up, let's keep talking about this. What can the Mavericks do going forward to get him help? When's the next opportunity? We'll talk about that coming up. Before we do, let me tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline has the odds that you need to go check out the NFL divisional round. They got a bunch of stuff coming up. We got some games.
Let's do it.
Oh, the AFC North champions going into Buffalo. The rematch that never happened. What's the spread, Isaac? Bengals playing at the Bills.
I'm gonna do Bills by 3.5.
Bills by 5. Bengals O-line is really messed up right now, and so
they are.
that one really stinks. Giants against the dreaded Eagles. This is like a Cowboys fans just worst nightmares. This game right here. If you're a Cowboys fan, I want to know if you're even watching this game. What's the spread?
Eagles 6.5.
Eagles 7.5, and then the Chiefs against the Jaguars, the plucky Jaguars.
Oh gosh, Chiefs by 10.
Chiefs 8.5. So we have all kinds of NFL stuff. They have NBA stuff as well. Go check it out. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris, let's keep talking about this mural that went up. I'll put it up on YouTube.
Let's keep talking about the mural.
Please send Luka help. I appreciate it. I appreciate hearing from the fans, and it made some waves. Mark Cuban responded to it, but the narrative behind it, give Luka some help. And in this last segment, we talked about what are the big ways the Mavericks had very few opportunities to get Luka help, real help, not just go get a Jay Crowder, go get a Terrence Ross in free agency, right? Those moves that just would have moved the needle slightly, but not move it the way that we all really want it to. They had the opportunity with the Porzingis trade. That was a big one. They had it in 2019 when they had max cap space. They had it with Jalen Brunson. Those are and then the 2020 first round pick that was 19th. They've really had such few opportunities to make those moves, and they all turned out to not work so far. So what kind of blame do you give to an organization? I give them blame. The other thing is Mark Cuban removed the front office after some of those mistakes, right? Yeah. Removed the front office, then put Nico Harrison in the situation where he has to decide on Jalen Brunson very early, makes the mistake on that to not sign him to the extension. And then whatever happened, I don't even blame them for the summer. I blame them for the extension not happening during the season and even before the season. They should have just done it. But those are the opportunities that you had, and they've just been very even this past summer. A lot of people are putting a lot of blame on the huge mistake. I've seen people on Twitter say that the JaVale McGee signing is one of the worst signings in Mavericks history. I'm like, that's how much these small moves that the Mavericks can make matter, right? If that move had worked out, it'd be so different than what it is now, but it didn't work out, and now it just seems like this catastrophic, awful disaster when it's a center signed to a $5 million a year deal.
$5 million.
It's a very small contract in the aggregate, but it seems very big because the Mavericks have had so little chances in order to make some big moves.
Yeah. The signing was horrible. I mean, JaVale's been so bad, and there's no way around it.
Yeah.
I can't get there as far as worst signing in Mavs history. For somebody who makes $5 million a year. So, and it's just the easy scapegoat for anytime you lose a game. It's the big free agent signing. It's bro, he makes $5 million. But I think another thing when you look at the Luka stuff and it's man, are the Mavericks ever going to add help? In one hand, I think it's easy to look at and be look at these guys who's been around Luka his whole career. Look at Dwight Powell, Dorian. They've had the same. And it's they've had some of those same faces, but a lot of the other faces have changed, like you said. Within the first 4 years of Luka, we have seen, because some of these things haven't worked out, because they've tried and failed. They tried at Porzingis and failed. They tried for some of these other guys like Kemba Walker and these other free agents that they went after and failed. What happened? it was all right. Well, you know what we got to do? Big changes, because this has got to change. They cleaned house. Donnie Nelson, see ya. Rick Carlisle, the writing was on the wall. The best coach in franchise history, and he's like, I'm going to get out of here before I get fired. And it's like they wiped everything clean. They brought Nico in. Nico hasn't been here a ton of time. Yeah, the JaVale signing was bad, but the Jaden Hardy move in the second round looks fun right now. Like some of this other stuff is like, all right, let's give it some time with Nico. He took a low risk swing for Christian Wood. Christian Wood's having the best season of his career right now, playing like winning basketball. And you gave up the 26th overall pick in the draft. That was a great trade by Nico. So it's like, I think there's one thing to say, hey, what the Mavericks have tried hasn't worked to a degree. They made the playoffs 3 out of 4 years and made the Western Conference Finals. But what I think there's a difference by saying, hey, the Mavericks, man, what they've tried, it just hasn't worked out. Compared to, man, they're just sitting on their butts. They haven't tried anything. It's like, man, in the span of Luka's 4 years, they have traded for a second star in Porzingis. They have cleaned out their front office, new head coach, like all this stuff. Like they've made some big changes. It's just we're continuing, but they've also made some big mistakes too. And the Jalen Brunson thing, I mean, there's just no way around that. So like that was a huge mistake. You can never. I sat there, in Roller Town before the season. And Jeff Skin Wade now, we're both disagreeing on it. I was like, dude, you had to re-sign Jalen Brunson for the asset alone.
Yeah.
And Skin's been very vocal about it. He's like, man, Jalen at that price tag, I don't know if he could be a trade asset.
Doesn't matter.
I think he would. I still think, and I just, we just disagreed on that. It's like, I think he still would have been a trade asset, and I think for the asset alone, you had to pay Jalen Brunson. But it's just, it's a unique spot because we're in year 5 of Luka. And what's happening now is, I know patience is not fun. My wife can tell you I hate patience. I hate all of this. But they're gathering, they're recouping their assets for the next big swing. And it will be the next thing that we judge them by. That will be the next thing that we paint murals about, is whatever the next big swing is, right? Like that's the thing. I want to see who Nico pulls off for the big swing. That is the thing I'm waiting for, that we will analyze more than a JaVale McGee signing, than trading 2 seconds for Jaden Hardy. It is, all right, they had one swing with KP and Donnie and all of those, but now it's Nico's turn at the big swing to pair a second star next to Luka. Who will it be? That will be the thing. Because if they go out and say, man, we swung for DeAndre Ayton, it's like, oof. Like, I mean, I could see it. Like, I mean, I'm like, all right, young, big. Like,
he would be some help.
Like I'd really want to see some quotes. I'd like to do some talking behind the scenes, see the reasoning, what they believe, their vision for it, and all of that. It's like, all right, we're gonna judge a lot of Nico off that. But if they go out and swing and they get somebody like an OG, a Pascal Siakam, a Paul George, like somebody on the wing that goes with Luka like that, and we're like, oh, okay, like. Now we're seeing, like, that's why you're saving those assets and all this stuff. When everybody's screaming, you're not doing anything, you're holding your assets to get a guy like that. So I'm waiting. So
Luka does need help. And the first opportunity they're going to have, really, or the next opportunity they're going to have, is this draft, this upcoming summer, when the 2023 pick goes to the Knicks and they draft somebody that's not going to play. And then the Mavericks have all their picks in the future. And then all of a sudden, okay, around the free agency time, when trades start happening, when trade season opens back up, that's when they're going to have a big move. Like one of your points was that the Mavericks have moved on from guys, right? Dorian, Luka, Dwight Powell, Maxey, and Tim are like in the top 6 players that have played the most games since Luka started his career. Brunson's up there too. And then like Boban is number 11. They've cycled through guys. Boban played 100 games for the Mavericks since Luka Doncic was a rookie. And that to me tells you, all right, they've cycled through some guys. They've tried stuff. They're like, all right, let's see what works now. Let's go. All right, Harrison Barnes, we don't think is going to work. Let's move on from him. The DeAndre Jordan thing, that isn't going to work. We'll move on from him. Like they've been willing to move on from guys if it's not working. And they've just kept, these 5 guys and Dorian and Dwight and Maxey and Tim. Throw Josh Green in there, I guess, too. But they've kept these guys because it's, those are the only guys that have really stuck recently. So let us know what you think in the comment section about the mural, about the narrative about Luka needing help. When do you think it's going to come for the Mavericks?
I can't wait to be called a homer after this one.
I mean, I thought we hedged it. I thought we hedged it pretty well. But
they've made mistakes, but I just think the blanket statement of, hey, the Mavs haven't tried, stuff like that. It's like, no, they've tried a ton. Like, they've made a ton of big decisions and moves both off the court and on the court. It's just a lot of them hasn't turned out yet. And so
they had 3 big opportunities and they've fallen short on every single one of them so far, right? Like, and only 3 since Luka's been a rookie. That's been 5 years. That's not very many opportunities if you really think about it. So that's been the big problem, I think. And so we'll see this upcoming season. This will be the 4th one, the 4th big opportunity for the Mavericks to make a move to actually move the needle here for Luka. So let us know in the comment section what you guys think. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Now go check out Locked On NBA Game to Game. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis from Locked On hosts like us. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom!